Good morning, everyone. Welcome to RPI's webinar on simplifying open enrollment. Ariane?
Hi, everyone. Morning. My name is Ariane Silva. I'm a senior HCM consultant here with RPI, and I've been with RPI for about 8 years now. I work a lot with GHR and GHR benefits implementations. So hopefully today I can share a little bit of my knowledge about open enrollment with you guys. So do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. I'm Sue Pokorny, and I'm also a senior HCM consultant here at RPI. I've been with RPI for over 3 years, but I've been working in the HR industry for over 20. And I don't know about you, but every time the leaves start to turn here in upstate New York, my mind immediately goes to open enrollment. Ariane and I have pulled together a few basic best practices that we believe you can use in preparing for your open enrollment in GHR. Today, we're going to cover how to update your benefit plans and premiums, how to simplify your enrollment process using enrollment event rules. We'll touch base on the standard measurement job for ACA. We'll show you how to manage your open enrollment records and run the reevaluate job. And then we'll also touch base really quickly on what you can expect the employee experience to be like in employee space. And then we'll close out with any questions and answers. Ariane, you want to kick us off with how to update your benefit plans and premiums?
Yes, absolutely. So as you guys get ready, right, for open enrollment, one of the main tasks that you will be performing is negotiation, right? You are going to be negotiating with your vendors and trying to, maybe you are going to have some changes, right, in vendors. Most likely at the end of that process, you will need to either create a new benefit plan structure in GHR, or you will be updating rates for your existing plans. Not always, right? But if you do have a rate change and that needs to be reflected in GHR, we're going to step through how you guys will be able to accomplish that. So I'll switch to our sandbox right now because our goal is to demo some of the system to you guys. And I will try to talk through the new benefit plan in case you do have to create a new benefit plan. But I'm also going to go over updating the rates for the existing benefit plans. So let me share my screen with you guys. And let's take a look in GHR. As you can see here, I am in as a benefit administrator. You will be going under this benefit plans. And this should list all of your existing benefit plans, right? So again, the focus of this presentation is to prepare you guys for open enrollment, right? So this is one of the tasks that you would be performing in advance to that open enrollment period, right? If by any chance you are introducing a complete new benefit plan to your organization, there is not a current plan that you could use as a starting point. You guys would go in here and select this create option. So this create would allow you to create a benefit plan from scratch. In a lot of situations, you would be basically creating a plan based on an existing plan, right? So if that's the case, you can always use that copy functionality. So let's say you were introducing, a new vision plan this year. You can copy that plan from an existing vision plan as long as your structure is the same, right? And when I'm talking about structure, the type of plan, the coverage type, contribution type, you will be able to use this copy functionality. Once you copy a benefit plan, you wouldn't need to create a new code, which is this new benefit plan. And one thing that you guys need to keep in mind is deductions cannot be shared. So for a new benefit plan, the system will require that you guys create a totally new deduction code. This would be scenario 1, right? Where you would have a new benefit plan to be introduced for that open enrollment. Scenario 2, you guys do have new rates for your existing plans. Let's say your new rates are for medical or vision or dental plans. The changes should be pretty straightforward, right? Most likely your plans, the ones that I just mentioned, they're going to be listed either as coverage options and options amount, right? Or if you do have some different calculation for your premiums, you could have that options amount range. But basically, with that structure, the contribution table will look like this. You're going to have that contribution date. You're going to have the different benefit groups. And your premium amounts are going to be listed in here. As you can see, I already copied my vision plan for 2025. But if you guys are in that process right now and you see your previous rates, you need to update that. Do not update the existing contribution table because you guys can lose history with that, right? So right click on the record, select copy, and create your new contribution date. Once you create that, then you can double click on that record and update your premiums. So as you guys can see, pretty straightforward, right? If you do have this type of plan, you would go in here, update the contribution table, create tables with new dates based on your open enrollment dates, and update the rates afterwards. The process I'm showing here needs to be completed before you are creating enrollment records for your employees for open enrollment. The second scenario would be if you have updates on the premiums for your optional life, for your LTD. Those plans, they are usually a little bit different. So once you select that plan, most likely they're going to have this type of contribution, salary or coverage rate table. If your plan have a rate table, you do need to update that rate table first before updating your contribution, right? So what I would do in this case, let's update our optional life. You can go to your contribution and you can review your rate table. One of the ways in which you guys can go directly into that table is selecting this drop down. You can right click on the optional life and select this open. The system is going to open that rate table. You can see here my rate table is based on 2019. If I want a new table for 2025, I would select the 3 dots and I can hit that copy functionality. Again, the copy functionality is very helpful in GHR, right? Because it helps you guys get through those tasks a little bit easier. Our open enrollment is 1/1/2025. So that's what we will select here for our rate table. And as you guys can see here, the system will create my new 2025 table. I just needed to hit the back option here and forward. But after that has been created, after you confirm that you are on the new rate table, then you can go in and update your rates. So let's update this one here. As you can see here, we are updating a couple of those rates. If some of them are remaining the same, you don't need to perform those updates. You can, once you're ready, you can hit the save option. I'll close this table. Now that I have a new rate table, I can go ahead and copy my entire contribution table for the upcoming year. So for this type of plan, I will have a two-step process. So first, update your rate tables. Make sure that everything is, the dates are based on your open enrollment dates. Then you will go in the contribution table and update that. So this is one of the first things you will be doing as you guys get ready to start working through the open enrollment event. So now let's take a look at our presentation.
Okay, I'll advance you forward.
Another item that I would like to touch base on is the benefit jobs. And a lot of you guys, if you're managing benefits, you're very familiar with those jobs. But they are basically jobs that are going to run on a daily basis, right? And I will go over each one of them pretty quickly if you were not familiar with them. But my recommendation is to basically, before you start creating your open enrollment records, take a look at each one of those jobs and make sure that you were addressing errors. Make sure that, all those jobs are up to date. And if there are any issues that you guys are not able to resolve, please either, contact Infor, right, through the support, or if you guys have a managed contract with us, please open a ticket with us. We'll gladly go over any issues you guys may have on your benefit jobs. The first job that we have here on this list is the employee enrollment updates. This is the former resource update. Infor had a couple upgrades done and completed on this job, but basically this job is responsible for updating premiums and changes that are happening on the resource record. And I'm going to give you guys an example. Let's say you do have different rates for your part-time and your full-time population, right? If I, as an employee, if I am moving from a part-time to a full-time status, once that, let's say it's a transfer, once that action is completed, my benefits are not going to be updated until this job is completed. So this job would move my benefits from a part-time rate into a full-time rate once that action has been completed. And that, can happen. So I see a lot of clients that they have wellness programs, right? So based on the completion of those programs, you could have different rates. This is something that this job would be looking to as well in terms of changes. The mass create eligibility is the job that will create eligibility records for all of your employees that do not already have one. And the mass enroll default plans will automatically enroll employees in plans as long as those plans are set up as default plans. So again, very important jobs, right, in the benefit system. And errors that are listed on those jobs, it's very important that we are addressing them before we get into our open enrollment. So just keep that in mind, right, as you guys are getting ready for that process. I think we can move forward. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about creating the enrollment event. Now let's dive into creating those enrollment events. Can go to the next slide. So there are a couple things that we need to work through as we get ready to create that open enrollment event. And things here are going to be a little bit different, right, depending on if this is the first time you guys are creating this open enrollment, or if you already have one record for the previous year. As you can see here on the screenshot, I had one open enrollment in 2025, right? So it makes it a little bit easier for me to create an open enrollment from 2025, right, based on 2024. One thing that you guys need to keep in mind before creating those open enrollments is reviewing the enrollment groups. What are those enrollment groups? Basically, enrollment groups allow you to group similar plans together. So again, giving you guys an example, I can have a medical enrollment group, and under this medical enrollment group, I will have my high deductible health plan, right? My HPOS plan, and my waive medical in case the employee decides to decline coverage. So we can group all of that together, this way making it easier for the employee as they go through open enrollment and make their elections. Organization rules, those are also another piece. This is also another piece of open enrollment prep that I usually recommend just, taking a look before you guys move forward. You might use the same rules as you did last year, right? If this is your second or third open enrollment, but if there are any changes, this is a good place to go in and update those rules before open enrollment. And we'll talk about your enrollment events as well. So let's jump into the system. And I will show you first enrollment groups and where those are. One thing that I wanted to mention quickly here is, if the forms that you were seeing, the structure here on my menu looks a little bit different, this is our sandbox, and we do have the new benefits web consolidated menu enabled. So this is something that Infor is going to push out, I believe, in 2025, but we are already taking a look at that. You can as well. You guys just probably need to get in contact with your system administrator. They can toggle that functionality. Under the plan section, you can go on this enrollment groups. This is going to list all the existing enrollment groups that you guys have. I will take a look at the health one, since that was the example I just gave you guys. This is where I'm grouping all my health plans together. You can see here I have the maximum number of plans that can be selected. This required option, and I will enable the required option for us. You're basically telling the system, enforce the selection on at least one plan from this enrollment group. So if an employee is going through the health enrollment group, they will necessarily need to select one of the plans that are listed here, right? In this case, either the high deductible, the HPOS, or they would have to waive. So keep in mind that if that's something you want to enforce, you need to flag this required option. Under the coverage, if those plans, they have either coverage options or coverage amounts, you can select if you want to display this information to employees, and if you want employees seeing the pre-tax, after-tax contribution totals and employer costs. And then here we also have a couple additional information that you can display to your employees, again, once they go through that open enrollment. Under the plans, here is where you will define what benefit plans are going to be part of this enrollment group. So here, again, this is my health enrollment group, right? So I am adding all my health plans plus the waive into this enrollment group. Once you double click on those plans, you guys can see a couple rules. You could basically select a plan and only allow employees to add or remove that plan. This is gonna play a bigger part in the life events, but just want to make sure you guys are aware of that. Once you've created and or updated all your enrollment groups, you should be able to start creating your enrollment event. Again, we just mentioned that, but if you do have a previous open enrollment record, you can go ahead and simply copy that enrollment and create a new one for the upcoming year, right? Once you do that, event codes can never be the same. So I would basically create an open enrollment record for each year. So 2024, 5, 6. And the new enrollment date, this is based on when your benefits, when your plan starts, right? So if you're running on a calendar year, this would be 1/1/2025. Some clients, you're running on a fiscal year, so your new enrollment date would probably be 7/1, right? Again, it's gonna be depending on how you process those benefits. The enrollment period is driving the period of time in which employees can get on employee space and make their elections for open enrollment. Once you create your new open enrollment, you guys will be able to dive into it and start working through some rules. This is a very important step, right, in terms of prepping for open enrollment, because the enrollment rules, they are basically going to help employees and you can guide them through that process. So at the end of the day, one of the things that you want to do is simplify the experience, right, for your end users. This is a great way to do that. Before I open the enrollment rules, let me go ahead and just mention something here that some clients, they don't know, but you could create different enrollment rules for different group of people. So let's say you have a executive group, or you have folks in a specific position, and you would like them to basically see different instructions, maybe send them different email template notifications, show different benefit plans. This is a great way for you to do that. So you're basically customizing, right, that experience based on a specific criteria. Might be their job, family, their category, the user field, anything like that, because ultimately it's based on benefit groups. In our case, again, we're gonna pretty straightforward here, right? We just have one group, so all active employees. And once you double click on that enrollment group, you guys will be able to see some additional rules. We will dive into each one of those tabs, but starting at the details tab, I can define if I want my employees to see costs by pay period or annualized monthly costs, right? So you can determine that. You will also determine if you are running ACA. An important piece is to determine if you're creating offers, right, from your open enrollment. Then we have this pre-select. The pre-select comes into play, especially if you have passive enrollment. So what happens in this case is you can select this option. Once employees go through employee space and they're making their elections, let's say if an employee is already enrolled in the high deductible health plan, right? They're going to see that plan and it's already going to be selected. So if they want to continue with the high deductible, there's no action needed. They can keep moving, go to the other section. The same thing for employees. If by any chance they haven't even touched their open enrollment, that high deductible will simply roll over to the next year. So this is where the pre-select option will come into play. And for the passive enrollment, you guys can select if you want the system to basically stop all of their current elections in case it's rollover, right? If you want the system to stop all those elections and initiate new ones for the upcoming year, or if you want that the same record to simply continue active. In this example, right, let's say an employee has a high deductible starting 1/1/2024. If you select do not stop existing benefits, once open enrollment is finalized by 2025, you would see that employee enrolled in that same plan with a 1/1/2024 start date. If you select enroll with pre-selected benefits, you would see that same employee enrolled on 1/1/2025 start date. That's the difference between those two options here. And then you have some additional configuration if you want to use customized templates and things like that. And then let's dive into the enrollment settings, because this here is, as I mentioned before, it's a very important piece of that employee experience, right? You are basically guiding employees through open enrollment as you define the rules in here. So you can see here, you can create and update all those headers. You can add instructions. On those instructions, you can add hyperlinks. You can bring in some images. So there's a lot of flexibility to update those instructions for employees. In addition to that, you guys can go in and update links. Maybe you want to send employees to the retirement vendor website or the medical vendor website. You can do that through those links. You can also add videos on your open enrollment. So let's say you want to create a video and basically guide the employee through this process, right? You can, as long as you create a video, you have an embedded link, you are able to add that in here. And then this is basically on the latest upgrade that Infor had. They brought over a couple additional functionality into those enrollments. So now you should be able to perform a name change, an address change through open enrollment, but also you can have contact and emergency contact information being displayed. Another thing that we can do through open enrollment is we can have some eligibility survey questions. This is usually used for surcharge. So if your company, if you are implementing surcharges, maybe you want to ask employees if their spouse is covered through their employer and things like that. You can use the eligibility survey for that. And then there are some plans that could be based on smoker status. If you do have plans based on the smoker status and you want employees to going in and updating that smoker status during open enrollment, you would enable this tobacco status change. And then you can basically add some configured task on each one of those different statuses. And then another thing that you would be able to enable during the open enrollment event rule setup is dependents. So you can allow employees to go in and add new dependents or update existing dependent information. And under the enrollment settings, you can display certain messages or play certain images that would be visible to employees when they go through open enrollment. Another thing that is also configurable is the acknowledgement. So at the end of your open enrollment, you can basically create a disclaimer, right, or a consent before you submit your open enrollment. And this piece here is completely configurable. And then those, again, additional messages that you can update in the system in order to help guiding employees through that process. See if they need to maybe address an error before submitting, or if there are warnings, things like that. This would make it easier for them to identify what they need to do, right, and why they're not able to complete their open enrollment at that point. Okay, so now we got through all the enrollment settings. Let's talk about email automation. This is another very helpful functionality for open enrollment. You guys can select email templates that would go out to employees once open enrollment is created, once that enrollment is submitted, once that is finalized. And not only employees, right? If you need, managers getting information, you can completely configure that email template. And then as you can see here on my example, I have an email template that is going to go out once benefit administrators are creating that open enrollment event for all employees. And then another piece of that enrollment rule setup is determining what are going to be my enrollment groups. So here is where you would select each one of the plans that are going to be part of your open enrollment. Very important step. If you don't have this link, employees will not be able to see any benefits as they go through that open enrollment process. And if employees are going through that process and they are not seeing certain plans that they are eligible for, one of the places that I would go to and review is this section here. You might be forgetting something, right? So that's how we got through our open enrollment event. Once you get all of this configured, you would be able to start creating your enrollment events. There's just two items that I would like to touch base before we move forward. But first item is under your benefit plans, make sure that you are selecting this functionality, this passive enrollment checkbox if you have a passive open enrollment, right? The second item is under administration organization. And I'm going to open our demo company. This is where you would review the enrollment display. So remember how I mentioned some organization rules, right, that you can review before you start open enrollment? This is where those rules are going to be. So maybe you have some additional links that you want to add here. If employees are not able to open that open enrollment record, right, you can configure a message to them, maybe contact HR, send us an email so we can work on troubleshooting that, right? So those are all configurable fields. And once you completed all of those preliminary steps, you should be able to start working through your open enrollment. But I'm going to hand it over to Sue so she can talk a little bit about ACA and what is required in terms of pre-tasks, right, for open enrollment.
Thank you, Ariane. I'm going to take over the screen share. Let me move my screens around a little bit. Great job on covering that. So ACA reporting, most of us think of ACA when it comes January. Before your open enrollment, there is the standard measurement job that you should be running. And the standard measurement job, when you go to set up your hours, make sure you're changing your time periods here so that they're reflective of the new stability period. So I ran this last year. These had 2024 dates. We're going into 2025. So my stability period is going to be January 25 through December 2025. If I was on a fiscal year, depending on my measurement stability period, whether it was a 6 month or a year, I would see 7/1/25 through maybe 6/30/24 26, or 7/1/35 through 12/31/25 if it was a 6 month period. And then your administrative period is going to be in your current year, which is 2024. And then you're measuring back a full year prior to your administrative period. So your measurement would go from, if my open enrollment starts on November 1st, then my measurement period would be November 1st of last year through October 31st of 2024. And then my administrative period would start. I'd have about 2 months here to get everyone enrolled, and then the stability period would start for your benefit year. So those are the how you set up your ACA hours measurement job. Now, to run the report, um, you want to remember that you're measuring all your employees, part-time, full-time, per diems, and this job is really set to measure based on their hours worked if they're eligible for an offer of coverage. So if your payroll is outside of GHR, make sure that you're importing that information from payroll, the hours worked, into the ACA hours business class. And I'm going to take just a minute here and hop over into the sandbox. So within the sandbox, under benefits, you can go to the ACA to make sure you have hours loaded. So if your payroll, again, if your payroll is within GHR, this is auto populating for every pay period, each pay period. If your payroll's outside of GHR, then you want to load your hours like I've done here. When you load your hours are going to show under the external field, versus if you have payroll within GHR, you would see them in the payroll hours. And then it gives you a total of what your ACA hours are per pay period for each employee. It also does the ALE member assignment. Once I'm ready, I know my hours are all there and I want to run my measurement job. I come out here. I want to create a report. My period type, I'm going to do the standard measurement. My average hours and average weekly hours and monthly hours are already established based on my original setup. I'm going to run it from my benefit group, which is basically wide open. Ours is named a little different because we use it for various purposes in our sandbox. Your benefit group, you want to make sure your benefit group is capturing all your active employees and anyone who's terminating in the future beyond the offer of open enrollment. So make sure you have your benefit group set up correctly. And then you need to update your measurement period hours. So just like I showed you in the screenshot or the slide deck, you want to update your dates, and basically you're just advancing them all by a year. And then you want to go ahead and run your report. Depending on the number of employees you have, this report could take quite a few minutes or up to an hour or so to run. We just have a very small group here. But what this does is measures the hours the employee has worked for during this measurement period, and it returns their total hours worked. It'll tell you whether or not they're eligible for an offer of coverage. Right now, all of my people are showing as incomplete because my measurement period hasn't completed yet. So um, we're still we haven't hit 1031, so there's still more hours to measure. But once I run this job again after 1031, it would tell me these people here who have hit the 1560 that they're eligible for an offer of coverage. If this person is not already included in your open enrollment group, maybe they're a per diem or a part time and they've been covering extra shifts, you do have to offer them coverage under ACA regulations. So, just like Ariane was talking about, where you can create separate open enrollment events, you would create an open enrollment event for your ACA specific people. And then you could control that, what they're eligible to enroll in through your enrollment rules and your enrollment groups. So you could create an open enrollment event for ACA eligible that only allows them to select a medical coverage or to waive it. Um, so that's how you create your measurement and make sure you're offering everyone who's eligible, you're offering them their coverage. Okay, let me head back over. Okay. So once you've reviewed your measurement results and you're good to go, you can move them from preview to measurement. It'll also, tell you who's not currently enrolled, who needs to be enrolled, that type of thing. And now we're going into how to manage your open enrollment events. So Ariane, you want to take over?
So now let's talk a little bit about how you guys are going to be managing your open enrollment records. So we basically just stepped through how you create your enrollment event, right? We determined the dates. We configured how employees would go through that experience. Now it's time for us to create the enrollment records so employees can go through employee space and make those elections. There are two actions that you can perform here. As you guys can see on the screenshot, we have a mass enrollment action and a create enrollment. So once you go under that enrollment events and right click on your enrollment, you would be able to create enrollment, which means you can individually create an enrollment event for an employee, or you can use the mass enrollment, which would create enrollment records for all your benefit eligible population. What I would recommend is before you start your open enrollment, use the create enrollment, create a couple records, maybe for the HR team so they can go and take a look, see if everything looks good, right? And then you use the mass enrollment to create those records for your whole population. We will, again, dive into the system and we can take a look in that process. Let me share my screen. As you can see, I'm under enrollment events and open enrollment. My latest open enrollment record is 2025. If I right click on that enrollment and select this create enrollment, I can individually create open enrollment records. So I could go in here, select an employee. As a reminder, that employee would need to be benefit eligible, right? And create that record. Now, once you have done that, right, you can see I created that for 2 employees. You can run your mass enrollment, and there are a couple options here. You can either select the different groups. So let's say you want to roll that out in between different groups of people, right? So first you will roll out to your HR team, then IT, then maybe finance, and then general population. You could use that benefit group to do that. If you select the all enrollment rules, the system is basically going to look into that enrollment rule group that we set up earlier today, and it's going to create enrollment records for all employees that are part of that group. Once you select either the all enrollment rules or the benefit group, you would review that enrollment period and select a reason if that is applicable. And once you do that, you can hit submit. You have an option for comments as well if you have any additional comments. Depending on the size of your organization, you can see here that the system's already creating my open enrollment records, right? At this point, emails are going to go out if I have that email notification, right? Employees are going to start getting emails. Hey, open enrollment. You were ready to start making your elections for open enrollment. Depending on the size of your organization, this job might take a while, right? So usually clients are running this maybe the night before and, leave that running at night. Employees will come in the next day, will be able to start making their elections through employee space. So this is what an enrollment record will look like. An open enrollment record would look like from the benefit administrator view. So you can see here, I have an option to go in and review the details around this open enrollment. I also have an option to see the plan enrollment. So you would be basically seeing the same screens that your employees are seeing. That can be very helpful in terms of like troubleshooting things during open enrollment. Once you complete this task, all employees should be enabled to go in employee space and start working through their open enrollment. Now, let me stop sharing. Let's take a look at our presentation.
Right. So let's take a look at what your open enrollment looks like from a chart point of view. So in the system, picking up where Ariane left off here in your open enrollment event, you can see, you can see your graphs here with where your all the status, with where the status is on all of your open enrollment events. You can also take a look at it from a chart view, a pie chart, and you can see here what your status looks like. So as people start submitting, you'll see your submissions grow. As people start opening and reviewing, you'll see them as in a started status, and you can kind of monitor this. Another nice little handy cheat that Infor has provided you is you can right click on the status and you can send emails out as reminders. So everyone here who's in this blue draft status, whether I'm looking at the pie chart or I'm looking at the bar chart, I can click on that status group and send a mass email out. You've already developed what these email templates will be like in your open enrollment setup, but then I can send out a reminder, hey everyone, don't forget open enrollment ends at the end of the month. You have 10 days left, 5 days left. So you can continue to remind this group of employees in mass. Let's go back to this slideshow. Ariane, you want to cover the reevaluate eligibility job?
Yes, absolutely. This is a functionality that is part of your open enrollment settings. During open enrollment and before you guys get into finalizing those open enrollment records, you can use this reevaluate eligibility to have the system basically scanning for all open enrollment records and reviewing if there are any employees that were terminated or they became ineligible during that period of time in which your open enrollment is open. The system can either inactivate their open enrollment records or delete it altogether. So this is a nice functionality, right? It would allow you guys to better manage those open enrollment records. And sometimes we know during that process, right, you will have employees transferring, being terminated. It's impossible to keep track of all the changes that are happening on the HR side. So this job can help you better manage those resources changes. And I believe that in terms of prepping you guys for open enrollment, those are the main tasks that you should be worried about and working through, right? But we also want to give you a little bit of a sneak peek in the employee experience. So I'm going to let Sue show you a little bit what an employee would see as they go through open enrollment.
Right. And this, I think this is a great point to stop and remind people that when you go to create your open enrollment events, before you kick off that mass open enrollment job, like Ariane suggested, definitely do a small test group and have them run through what they see as an employee, because they're going to catch some of the things you may have missed. Um, and it just looks a little bit cleaner once you run that mass open enrollment job. So, just a few things to go over is make sure that you're updating your information topics. So, when employees open up their open enrollment and they go to the information tab, they're not seeing outdated information. And you do that through the administration portion of the benefits module, and you go to benefit information topics, and you can upload your new benefit guides. You can upload any documentation coming in from your vendors, with the new open enrollment year. You also want to make sure having that test, that little pre-test group where you're creating open enrollments for just a small test group, that gives them the opportunity to go through the open enrollment screens and make sure you haven't missed any small little detail that refers to prior years. So, like in here, Ariane showed us where we can update this message. Having someone review it before you kick it out to the masses helps you catch these tiny little details that may have been overlooked. And then also, you can also review and have someone double check your submit consents and any messages you leave in your open enrollment review and submit pages. So let's just hop into the system really quick. And from an employee's perspective, I would have received the email when my enrollment event was created, and I go into my benefits employee space into benefits. And right here, I can see my 2025 open enrollment. It is a little bit different than in prior versions. So if you're running an older version, you may see like an umbrella. It used to be under an umbrella, and it would be for your open enrollment event. It is different and separate from life events. So here, if you had selected the current to show their current benefits are going to be selected here or displayed here. And then any dependents and beneficiaries they may have. And again, this information tab is where they're going to get their updated documentation. So you want to make sure that's been updated. Once you go into the open enrollment, it's pretty basic, same concept for the employees. They keep going through the next tab to get to their open enrollment options. We have a little video here, and they can click into these different types of coverages. So the open enrollment process, is pretty much the same. It may just have a little bit of a different look and feel. Going back to the presentation. So any questions? Any questions from the group? Ariane, one of the questions coming in is if you don't have any rate changes to your rate tables or contribution rules, do you have to create a new rate table and or contribution rule?
And the answer is no. If you are not having any changes on your rate tables or your premium amounts, you do not need to create new contribution tables. The system will simply display the same rates as the previous year. That task that we showed you before, should only be used if you were having new rates.
Great. So if your question was unanswered, please email your questions to questions@rpic.com, and Ariane and I'll be sure to reach out and get them answered for you. We hope you enjoyed this webinar, and we hope you're ready to prepare for open enrollment. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.